Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked, the podcast where we discuss business, leadership, and personal development. My name is Margaret Smith, and I'm the Director of Operations for Pickett Street Properties, a real estate team out of Bothell, Washington. And I'll be here every week with our owner and team leader, Jesse D. Moore. We'll be digging into concepts and ideas that have helped us both personally and professionally. And you'll also get a chance to hear from local and national experts that we know provide massive value to get to the point where it all finally clicks.
Welcome, Finally Clickers.
Finally clickers. Actually, I kind of like that.
Welcome to another episode of Finally Clicked with your hosts, Jesse D. Moore and Margaret McCauley Smith.
Thank you for. I was just gonna say, can we add my middle initial because I feel like I'm missing.
I had to
a
differentiate. I just instead of an initial, I just went with the full name.
Okay, full name. Just
kind of like Jennifer Jason Lee.
Who's that?
Who? Oh
Jennifer Jason Lee.
I feel like half of this episode, every episode, is like a pulp culture class where I teach you what's happening in the world.
It's true.
It's like when I tell you about Reddit, and then you go. And the next time I see you, you're like, we should do an AMA. Ask me anything.
It is. This is a little bit of, teach Margaret a little bit about the world each time.
Like you didn't know there's a small fandom group called the Finally Clickers.
No.
You're so gullible.
I am. I believe what you say. What the hell?
You should have seen the consternation on her face.
I know my eyebrow went up.
She was so confused. Like, how could I not know about this? I am everywhere. I am all-knowing.
You know what? The clickers, it's catchy. I feel like there could be a subgroup of the Finally Clicked audience that could be the clickers.
Well, let's work on it.
Yeah.
All right.
You're drinking your dry, sparkling vanilla soda.
That's right.
It's actually some good stuff.
And it's tasty. Mm-hmm. You know what's funny, though, is it's more expensive than it should be.
Why?
I don't know why. Because it's owned by capitalists. That's why. No, but it's more expensive than it should be. It's more expensive than, like, soda water.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because Jill's like, oh, give me a second. And so she brought me her version of a dry vanilla soda, and I couldn't tell the difference.
Really?
Like, she just took a regular soda water and took, like, a tiny bit of vanilla extract, probably.
That's
mixed
awesome.
It together,
That's
put
brilliant.
it on ice, gave it to me. She's like, this costs, like, 50 cents compared to your $1.09.
Oh, that's awesome.
Drink.
Smart.
Right.
But it's the brand.
Well, it's not all branding.
I wonder if they would
I don't
sponsor
want to
us.
work for it.
Think they'd sponsor us?
For instance, here's a little thing to know about Jesse. So Jessica, our buyer's agent, just celebrated her 2-year anniversary with her man, Jared.
With her man,
and
Jared Wolf.
Their first
Love his
date.
last name.
Don't out his name.
I can't help it. I just love it.
Yes, he
so
can't
much.
help it. He didn't ask for this. So their first date was at a place called Crab Pot in Seattle. And I distinctly hate this place. And the reason I hate it is the food's good.
Can I just say, I love when you passionately hate something because it just makes for such a good story.
The food's good. Don't get me wrong. The food's good.
Okay. You like the food?
If you're visiting Seattle and you want seafood, the Crab Pot is one way to go. And I'm not saying the food's not good. I'm just saying I don't want to work that hard to get my food in my belly. And so the whole point there is like they'll do a huge boil, right? Seafood boil, including Dungeness crab, maybe some lobster. I don't know. But then they throw it on your table and they give you a giant napkin, a giant bib, and they give you rolls of paper towels, and you're just supposed. It's a melee. It's just a disaster. It's people and kids and adults crushing the exoskeletons of marine animals and throwing it into their mouth, and it's just not a pleasant experience for me.
Yeah.
Hygienically, it's too dirty. There's too much going on. I don't want to work that hard.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got there somehow.
From vanilla soda.
So I don't want to make my own vanilla soda. Like I just want to
I want to buy it. You know what?
Grab it, pop it,
yes.
drink it.
Yeah. You've really helped me transition from a lot of DIY to leverage. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I just had my house cleaned this week, and that's literally because of you. And it's like the most like wonderful experience to come home to.
Coming home to a professionally cleaned house.
You could literally lick the floors.
It's
and I would be satisfied.
Just to paint the viewers a picture. This is what it's like. It's like coming home from camping when you've been gone like 7 days.
Yeah, haven't showered.
Taking a shower.
Yeah, that's a good picture.
Putting on brand new, fresh underwear.
Yeah.
Crawling into a freshly made bed with clean sheets.
Yeah. Oh, God, it's good.
And I'll stop there. But, I mean, that's what it's like having your house cleaned. Coming home to a professionally cleaned house. Well, I think we have limbered up our vocal cords. I think we're ready to jump. Okay, we're not ready.
We're ready to dump on y'all and just jump right into this conversation.
For
some reason, I decided to get an accent right there.
Part 3.
But I have to tell you, can I say this every
of
single
our
time? This is one of my
five-part
favorite sections.
Series. This is where Margaret talks over me while I try to say something relevant. This is one of your favorite series?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we've had some of the biggest struggles and some of the biggest successes here. It's the most painful section for me.
Really? The whole thing?
Yeah.
Why?
Hire, train, and retain.
Oh, this one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that yet. We haven't told them what it is.
I'm just prefacing it with...
All right. All right. So in our series, 5 steps to building the top producing team, we are on step 3.
Step 3.
We've talked about step 1, which is mindset. Step 2, which is margin. I love that one, by the way.
That was a fantastic episode.
I like margin. I like talking about margin. I feel like it's a little nuanced piece that I like to master.
Hey, speaking of words and just how you threw out nuance like there, I just want you to know that I used the word quiver this week because of you.
Oh, yeah? You feel like sharing the reference?
I was telling someone in an email, I think, that about communication and how I added a quiver to my... How did I put it? I added a quiver to my...
added an arrow to your quiver?
Oh, God, I don't know if I said that. I'm going to have to check.
Oh, goodness. The correct way would be to say, like, I added it to my quiver, or I added another arrow.
I think I said I added it to my
quiver.
Is that
okay? That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, thank God.
Yeah. And so for those that don't know, quiver is essentially a sheath for arrows. It's where you hold your arrows, like if you were Robin Hood, you would, and it's that cylindrical tube that you reach behind and grab an arrow. That's your quiver. So it would be, metaphorically, it would be your tool bag of tools that you have to utilize at any given time. And so if you learn something new, you add it to your quiver.
You added in the quiver. I added it.
It's getting so hard to tell people what step 3 is. Like, I've tried so many times today. Step 3, hire, train, retain. This is where a lot of teams break down. Is that you have the mindset to build a team. You realize that you need to create margin in your life, which requires that you hire people. And now we get to the actual execution of it. Hiring, finding people, interviewing them, taking them through the process, hiring them. Once they're hired, training them. Once they're trained, how do you keep them on the team? So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
I can't wait.
You don't have to. We're going to jump right in. So I like to pull quotes when I teach classes.
Yeah, you do.
I just basically like to let people know that I read a lot. No, that's not it at all. I get a lot of great nuggets out of the books that we read. And what point is there in reading books if you don't take a little piece of it with you? So,
are you still keeping track of quotes for your kids?
Not in the same manner.
Okay.
I have a few voice memos from my kids when they were younger.
Oh, that's cute.
And I've thankfully I've told you a few stories, so you help me remember.
Okay.
All right. So Jim Collins, and in one of my favorite books, Good to Great, says the main point is to first get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus before you figure out where to drive it. So
I think we're at the driving point, right?
Margaret, did you take an Adderall? Do you need to take an Adderall? What is happening
I don't
today?
know. I think I'm off.
Goodness gracious.
I'm not off. I'm just different.
You're not off. You're just like all over the
hyped.
place.
Yeah.
Man. All right. You remember reading Good to Great.
Yeah.
And you remember reading The Energy Bus. So those are 2 great books we recommend. Andy, add them to your notes. Good to Great is awesome because it's about, it's really about good companies that became great companies and what are some of the things that they shared that made them exceptional. And his premise is good is the enemy of great because if you're good, you become perhaps more lazy, more complacent, not pushing forward in the same manner. And he talks very much in the beginning of the book about making sure that you have great people and not to let anyone less than great come on the bus.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the Energy Bus, which is a book, it's the same principle. It's getting the right people on the bus, getting the wrong people off the bus. And so once you've decided you want to build a team, and then you've decided you need margin in your life, and you're ready to hire somebody, what the problem is that most people take the low-hanging fruit. Here's what I mean by that. They hire their mom, their sister, their cousin,
whoever
their partner.
Can grab. Yeah.
Which you've just made things 1,000 times worse for yourself. Because if this doesn't go well in some way, now you've taken a step backward in your business and you've muddied the waters personally with these people, whoever they are. So I actually considered it like it's a rule of thumb for us. We don't hire friends and we don't hire family. And the premise behind that is essentially think about the waterfall if something goes wrong. For instance, Margaret has awesome siblings. And we had an opportunity to interview one of them, and I would have loved him to be on the team. But it's a no for me because even if he does join the team and maybe he's amazing at it, if he's not amazing, he's not an A player, he's not great, and we have to get rid of him, that affects you. You can't help it. It's your brother. You can't help it, right? I've put you in a weird situation, or you've put me in a weird situation, and now everything's weird. And I think with the end in mind, and I try to avoid easy obstacles.
Yeah.
And so for me, I don't hire friends. I don't hire family for that reason.
And we really have stuck to that. There's been a few exceptions or cases where maybe we've worked with someone temporarily. And I say that because I'm surprised time and time again how many people I meet around the country who do that and knowingly walk into situations. And sometimes it works out great. I think it depends on the level of communication.
How many times
out of the
do you see it where it's like, this is amazing?
Yeah, like I can guess like over the last 3 years, I've met maybe 40 different groups that do that, and maybe 2 are successful. Like right off the top of my head,
So
I think
5%.
I think about the group, Group 4610 with Kevin Kaufman and Fred Weaver. They're not family necessarily, but they're good, close friends. And it's one of the few partnerships that I've seen in the time with you that have stuck together. And it's very
and I would
rare.
say that's a little bit different because they formed that team early in their friendship. So it wasn't like they were
didn't know each other very well.
And then they did this.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with them. They're one of the longer partnerships that have lasted. But I really just mean people where you saw someone who is exceptional in real estate, and then the spouse joined because they didn't have anything else to do. Or, you know what I mean? Or they wanted to be around their partner more because they're working too much. That never goes well. I don't see that going well.
Yeah, and I know, and I've shared this with some people, and I would share it here. Like before I joined you, I was with my uncle's company for a short time, for about 6 weeks, and I was very much worried about doing that before I signed on because I interviewed with them at the same time I interviewed with you, and I knew within that short period of time that I had to leave, because primarily I was worried about those relationships My aunt and my cousin, I hadn't known, he's my step uncle technically. I hadn't known him for that long, but I grew up with this particular aunt and cousin. Like every summer, they were the closest family that we hung out with, and I was not going to risk those relationships. So I had a firsthand experience with that, and that has actually informed me on hiring decisions with friends and family in the future. I'm absolutely cautious with that. Even not just this business, but going into maybe situations where I could like own a home with one of my family members. I've thought about that. How would I handle that with friends? There's only certain friends I would even think about possibly doing that with.
I want to be careful, and I don't want to spend the whole time on this aspect of it. But I would say this. Here's why. And let's say you're listening to this and you are a family member on a team or a friend that was hired to a team. Fine, great. I hope it works out. Here's my point, though, or this is what I want you to understand. As a business owner, there's nothing more important than the business.
Yeah.
Period. So if you or your friend or your relative has to choose between you and the business is going to win 100% of the time. And if it doesn't, the business isn't going to last.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that. And if you are a business owner and you understand that the business comes first always, then I think it would be hard to hire a friend or a family member knowing that if things get tough, they have to leave.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So anyway, we're getting off the path. So let's come back to hire, train, and retain. So once you've decided you need margin in your life, then the next step is finding the right hire or bull to provide it for you.
Get that bull. Did you like my bull cartoon that I had on the image for the last episode?
I didn't see the bull cartoon.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, that's weird. You found a cartoon?
Well, just a little image that I used that reminded me of yours.
Well, nothing's like I have the original.
True.
All right, so we start this process off. We'll get into the hiring process just like rudimentary level. And so, Margaret, maybe you can tell them. For instance, our team leader today had a recruit that she thought we should talk to. She reached out to both of you and I, which is funny because she's just letting me know because she knows I'm not going to do it. You're going to do it. So then what's your next steps with that person?
Well, in this case, with our team leader, with anybody who refers me to someone, whoever the contact is, in this case, it was our team leader, Julie Banta. I immediately call, and I try to do it as we would a lead within 15 minutes because I'm letting that person know who's handed someone off to me that I'm going to take care of them, whether or not we hire them. Just that's how I solidify my network. So I called her within 15 minutes, and I just said, hey, I got your name from this person. I'd be interested in talking to you. Heard you might want to join a team. Would you like to talk with me? And they usually say yes. I haven't had anybody say no yet. And we set up an appointment for next week. So my first step is to get their resume and do an initial blink and make sure, number one, they're not crazy. Number two, they have some sort of a trajectory that I think would be interesting to look into more. That might be a benefit to our team. I'll look at those two things.
Okay, and then what I'm trying to get to is the next step. What's the next step?
So then they enter into our hiring process, which is career visioning, which is a process that was developed by Keller Williams. And the first step with that is to take the Keller personality assessment.
Okay, great. That's where I want to go.
Okay.
So in the hiring process, it's important to have a process, right?
Yes.
Should I tell stories? I guess it's entertaining
when
I tell stories.
How can you not? Yeah.
All right, so this part of the class, I might tell this story. My team leader, okay, let's go back in time. It is 2008. No, I don't know. 2000. Let's say it's 2009. It's 2009. My team leader at the time, I'm top 5 in the office. I'm doing okay. I'm not doing amazing. Top 5 in Market Center is pretty good, right? But I like being number 1, so let's focus on that. Anything less than number 1, I'm not that happy with.
That's what I like about you. Yeah.
So I was number 5, and my team leader at the time was really on me to hire an assistant. Yeah. And she really said, hey, if you hire an assistant, you're at the point where you need to hire an assistant. You should hire an assistant. And she said it till she was blue in the face. And I would argue with her because it was fun.
Because it was fun. She was a tiny little fireball.
She was. And we had a lot of affection for each other. And she was like a great, like an aunt to me, or a mom. Yeah. You know, she was a wonderful, wonderful person. Mm-hmm. And so she's on me, and finally I relent, and finally I'm like, fine, like let's interview some people. Mm-hmm. I've never hired anyone in my life. And I'm not one to ask for directions either. No. So
you just like to drive.
I had a business partner at the time, Dennis. So we decided together to make a hire. So my neighbor tells me she has a friend who is on the market for a job. And I'm like, great, we'll interview her. Mm-hmm. So I haven't interviewed someone before. So I asked her to meet me at a Starbucks, because that seems like something you should do, is meet off-site, right? Like in a public place. And I ask her questions that I've been asked before. Yeah. But they're the worst interview questions ever. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Yeah. What's your 5-year plan? You know, that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I did it to make myself feel good that I had done some sort of vetting process. Long story short, we ended up hiring this person without any... I'm trying to think if we did...
Did you do like an offer meeting?
We didn't do any assessments, is my point. 0 assessments. Mm-hmm. Had we done like a DISC assessment, I would have seen right away that she is a social being.
Butterfly,
yeah. Her greatest desire in life is to talk to other people. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. So we hire her, and we start regretting it almost instantly. Why? Because when she comes in, she spends about 20 to 45 minutes in our doorway telling us about everything that happened since we last saw her, which was 5:30 the night before. You know? Like, there's not so much, and she did not have such a dynamic life that there was just tons of information to tell us from 5:30 the night before to 9 o'clock the next day.
Which says so much, because now you come in and ask me, like, you want to know
actually
what happened.
I always do, but it's different.
It's different, though. You actually want,
So Dennis and I start beating our head against the walls, like, right away. Like, this is...
Did Dennis feel the same way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we were both like, hey, we want to get work done. She's too social. She's not getting anything done. Yeah. She's making mistakes. She's a nice person, but she's not really equipped to do this.
Yeah.
And... yeah, it was bad
coming
timing.
Up on Halloween.
It was bad timing because I met with my business partners on Halloween morning at a restaurant, and I didn't think about it at the time. I wasn't dressed up. I don't dress up for Halloween unless I don't know, unless I'm forced to by my fiance. So I'm not dressed up, but my business partner was super dressed up. His daughter was in drama club. Yeah. And so he was dressed to the nines as Captain Jack Sparrow. Yeah. So he looked like Johnny Depp. Yeah. He had on the do-rags and the face paint and he had on the outfit and the hat. I mean, he looked like Captain Jack Sparrow. Yeah. And so when we met at a breakfast place to talk through it, and then we came to the office, and then I asked to speak to our assistant in the conference room. And then when she came in, the hilarity of the moment hit me because she looked at Dennis like, oh, okay, well, nothing bad's going to happen because I'm meeting with Jesse and Captain Jack Sparrow. And then we politely tell her it's time for her to move on, find other employment. And then she looks at Dennis and goes, really, Captain Jack? Really? And
that's the best.
And Dennis couldn't say much. I'm sure he just gave her a nod because it was kind of true. Like, it was kind of ridiculous. And that kind of showed how ridiculous our system was because we didn't hire her correctly, and we certainly didn't fire her correctly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was such an atrocious hiring experience for everybody involved. So after that, we realized, hey, we don't know what we're doing, and we need to learn how to do this right. Yeah. So we took a class that Keller Williams was offering called Recruit Select. RSTLM is what it was called. and it's recruit, select, train, lead, motivate. And that was a 5-part class broken into 3 days. Mm-hmm. And recruit select was a 2-day process. And the whole point of the recruit select process that really helped us right at the beginning was the assessment. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm going to encourage you to do as part of your hiring process is find an assessment tool that you like, that you're comfortable with, that you can learn the language of. Mm-hmm. At the time, we had what was called the AVA, mm-hmm. and that was developed by a third party that Keller Williams licensed, and we had access to. The assessments are not inexpensive. Mm-hmm. They were $200 a pop. Mm-hmm. But when compared with making 5 hires, bad hires, or a bad hire, $200 a pop was nothing. Yeah. And so we did it. We spent the money, and we got the AVAs done. We did them on ourselves, and we validated those with each other, and that taught us a little bit about ourselves. And it also showed us where we were weak. So it showed us where we were strong, and it showed us where we were weak. And it helped us identify what the next person coming in, if they were to help us, what areas they'd be focusing on, because they'd be focusing on all the areas that we were weaker in. Mm-hmm. And so the assessments are an invaluable tool for starting the hiring process. Mm-hmm. And I don't want you to make decisions based on it. I don't want you to look at it and go, oh, they're no good, throw them out. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works. You're using this as an opportunity to open a dialogue with the person in a way that kind of like strips off their armor and gets them naturally talking about themselves in a way that's super productive, super affirming. Yeah. And it's the secret sauce to any hiring process. Mm-hmm. So find one. So examples of that would be RSTLM, which is, or the AVA. I'm trying to remember the company that.
Consulting.
Creative consulting. Creative consulting, I think, is corporate consulting. Yeah. They own that product, but Keller Williams has a new version of that. Career visioning is what it's called. Take those classes. If you're Myers-Briggs, I'm not as big a fan of, but I think any of those could work. DISC assessment we really like initially because it helps us, because we can read. We've done, how many discs have you looked at?
Oh, I mean, over the years, probably at least 150.
More than that, probably.
Yeah, probably more.
You've seen a lot. Yeah. So because of it, I can just look at a disc and it gives me a very good understanding of how that person operates.
Yeah, the basics.
So it gives you a bigger blank. It kind of expedites the whole process overall, and it helps you get into a position of trust with the applicant faster. So I recommend finding some sort of assessment to utilize.
I also love the Enneagram as well.
Yeah, you gals and your Enneagram. All I hear about these days is the Enneagram. All right, so here's what RSTLM, here's what that assessment helps us do. So for you, you should take these assessments yourself because you may not be objective. You may think you're better at some things than you are.
Well, yeah, heck yeah, we're not objective.
Well, for instance, and there's certain things that are nuanced that you may not know. For instance, I can show up highly detail-oriented.
Extremely.
Margaret, am I a highly detail-oriented person?
Not naturally.
Right. I'm not. I don't show up that way in every area of my life. But when it comes to the client experience, I care so much about it. It shows up.
So just as an interesting point with that, like, you have the ability to flex because you have the self-discipline to do so. I know plenty of people that aren't naturally detailed, but and also cannot flex to turn that on. You can flex to turn that on, which I think is interesting. And again, this just adds, you guys, to all these assessments. This has helped me learn how to anticipate for Jesse, period. Like, on top of just watching him and being around him, this is what these assessments do that I think people undervalue or don't really utilize. This is one of those aspects because he is so detailed that I know from the very beginning I had to up because I'm not naturally super detailed either, but I had to up my my eyes on stuff because I knew if I didn't catch it, he would. So it's just another example of how you can learn more about who you're working with.
But it takes so much energy from me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, I can be, and yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't want to be.
It's literally powers me down.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first things you told me in the first year was that you realized that you were beginning to trust me because you saw that I was catching stuff that previous assistants hadn't, and that definitely helped us.
All right, so take these assessments yourself, learn about yourself. What this can do for you is it helps you know who you are, which gives you the confidence to make the tough decisions to take your business to the next level.
It might add some awareness.
Also adds awareness to the differences in others. Helps. I think it affects your negotiation and sales as well. All right, for your business, it shows you where you need to make your next hire to achieve balance in your business. So if you are highly driven, highly social, not very stable, not very detail-oriented individual, you're going to want someone who's less driven, less social, who is highly stable and highly detail-oriented.
That consistent piece, yeah.
And then for others, for the candidate, the process creates advocates out of potential hires.
Love
and
this piece.
distinguishes you to your allied resources. So let me repeat that again. The process creates advocates out of potential hires and distinguishes you to your allied resources. Here's what I mean by that. The process, if you employ the right process and you do it correctly, even if you end up telling the candidate no, they become a fan of yours.
Yep.
They have learned something about themselves through the process, so much so that you have created a fan who's now going to push recruits and
Advocate
sales
for you.
to your business.
Yep.
We have many examples of this. The first time this happened, it was a friend of mine who was in a tough spot. She was unemployed. She just asked for an interview as a favor. And I thought that it was not likely that we were to hire her. And so I just did it as a favor to her. You and Becca, our leader at the time, met with her and did everything. And you guys knew from the beginning that this person was not a fit for our company. However, by following the process, she left that room knowing more about herself and knowing more about what her next job should be, to the point where when she got home, she got on Facebook and typed, I just went to the best interview of my life and I didn't get the job.
Yeah.
But I know more about myself and I know more about what I want.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pickett Street Properties.
Yep.
Like that's an
we have
amazing
countless stories like that.
That's an amazing thing.
Yeah. I have one other one I have to share that's similar to that, but with a 17-year-old who I just had them. And again, it was just like a request from one of our team members who'd been there for like 6 months. And she said, I know I don't want to waste your time. However, if you could do this for me, like it would mean the world. So I said, sure, half an hour of my time, do the disc. And as a 17-year-old, I love working with kids. And so I did the disc. We talked through it. Because of the verbiage that was used in the disc, she was like overwhelmed by these words that help to describe. And I know how that feels because that's how I felt when I took the AVA and I took the Myers-Briggs. It's like, it's all of a sudden you hear things and you're able to say, oh yes, that's about me. That's what happened. And so she actually took the words that she heard in the disc and used it at her next job interview to be an assistant manager in an ice cream shop in Snohomish. And she got the job because she said she was driven and she was motivated and all these words that she felt confident to go in and say. So she wrote me afterwards and said, I got this job because of you.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the coolest thing ever. And so, in the future, we've had so many interactions with people over the last 7 years, just since I've been here and before when it was just you, that those people are advocates for us. And they may not ever send us a piece of business or something, but they will speak highly of us. And that builds a reputation.
So the other part of this that I will finish off where I said it distinguishes you to your allied resources. Here's what I mean by that. And I learned this from John Davis, former CEO of Keller Williams. And I heard him say this before he was CEO. He mentioned that as a team leader of a Keller Williams office, he basically put together his like top referral sources and did the AVA on them.
Yeah.
He basically took their assessment that they use to help determine new hires and he went to his vendors, he went to his sphere of influence, his top A+ referral partners, and he took them through it personally and then showed them how it could affect their business, and he got tons of referrals back from those people. So this is something that if you master this and then you show your vendor partners or your other business owners that are your clients, and you show them how to do this and how it can, it's a secret hack, and how it can streamline their process and make sure that they get better candidates.
Yeah.
Man, they're going to send you everybody.
Oh, totally. And actually, you just reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I actually, at that time, 5 years ago or so, I went to your church that you went to at the time and did the disc with someone in front of a group of like 25 or 30 people. And then I also went to another company that we were working with on a database at the time and did the same thing to the owner in front of all of his employees. And it was such a cool experience that they were all like completely enthralled with. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is such a validating experience to have an assessment and then have someone care enough to go through the results with you.
Yeah.
And with that said, I have to just say, if you give someone an assessment, you have to go over the results with them.
Yeah.
You cannot have someone take an assessment and then say, you know what, you're not a good fit.
No.
Sorry.
No.
You just can't do that because they're bearing their heart and their soul, and this is them basically.
Yeah.
And you're just turning them down without
at the
an
very
explanation.
least, you have to validate and verify whatever the process is.
So just be careful with that. All right, so we've talked a lot about Recruit Select. There's already classes out there for career visioning, so look those up. We're not going to tell you everything that they're going to tell you. So we're going to take what we've learned from Recruit Select and some of the classes we've taken and go over some of the nuggets with you now. Let me share another quote from you. This is from Daniel Pink in Drive. Human beings have an innate inner drive to be autonomous, self-determined, and connected to one another. And when that drive is liberated, people achieve more and live richer lives. So the point there from Daniel Pink is that we want to be autonomous, self-determined, and connected to one another. And if you can allow people to feel that way, then you're going to have someone who's very happy where they work. And you're gonna see longevity in that role. So here's what we've learned from a few years of hiring people.
Just a few years.
And I've taken Recruit Select over 10 times. Margaret's taken it multiple times.
At least 5 or 6.
It's interesting. We have 2 people that are in career visioning class right now. Jessica and Jiggles are taking it now. Because if you're a leader in our company, you're going to be hiring people. And so you have to learn our process and do it effectively. All right. So here's a couple quick tips. Talent is likely already employed. They aren't fulfilled by their current work. People ask us all the time, where's the best place to look for employees? And it's funny how it's changed over 10 years because, it used to be Craigslist. Craigslist was like the biggest place ever to find people. I think that's gone down quite a bit. And there's new companies that have taken its place. But the point is that you're not looking... You are looking for someone to take a role, but you're not looking for someone who doesn't have a job. Like, just remember that. You're not looking for someone who doesn't have a job. You're looking for someone who may already be employed. You're looking for someone who's really talented. You're looking for someone who's better at some aspect of work than you are. And if they're better than you are at something, they probably already have a job.
Yeah, totally.
And if they already have a job, it means you have to find them. Well, how do you find someone who's going to be willing to leave their job and come to yours? Well, they're not happy where they're at. And
they're probably not actively looking on Craigslist or LinkedIn or Facebook for jobs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if the right opportunity came along, they might consider it. But they're loyal workers, and they're not out there actively looking for something. Or maybe they're not so unfulfilled yet, but it's going to come in the future. And this is how I would think about home sellers. It's great if they think of me when they want to sell their house, but I'd like to talk to them 3 months prior.
Yes.
Right? And
Seal the deal.
Look for opportunities. So our best script was to say on Facebook or to people in general, and this is how I found Margaret, is I asked my friends, who do you know that's super talented, they're likely already employed, but they're not fulfilled by their job. And when I said that to 2 friends, they both said Margaret's name. So you were working at the Seattle Art Museum. Were you actively looking for something new?
I had made the decision to put the notice out to my circle. So I had said to as many of my friends as I could, hey, I don't have to leave and I'm not happy. So if you hear of anything, pass my name along. I don't care what industry it is. And that's exactly what I said. So I had a job. I was employed. I could have stayed.
All right. Talent is inherently motivated to do well and will strive for autonomy over a raise as long as they're being paid well enough. So this is from Daniel Pink's book Drive. Again, I'll follow it up with a quote from the book. He says, money is only a threshold motivator. People must be paid well and be able to take care of their families. Once a company meets this baseline, dollars and cents don't much affect performance and motivation. In this environment, employees are far less likely to jump to another job for a $10,000 or even $20,000 increase in salary. The freedom they have to do great work is more valuable and harder to match than a pay raise, and employees, spouses, partners, and families become the staunchest advocates. Daniel Pink.
I love that.
Drive.
Guy.
Well, this is so valuable, this little piece of information. And how he says it so concisely, that not only is this a deterrent, if you create a great work environment for people and you pay them enough to pay their bills and enough to have money to do fun things, then increasing their money does less for them. And instead, what they're looking for is autonomy. Talent wants to be recognized for being talented. And the best way to show that is by not micromanaging them, period. Give them as much autonomy as they want, and they'll do great things for you. There's great examples of this in business. 3M had their policy where they would have like 20 minutes of free time for their scientists, for their employees, where they would have a certain amount of time every day that they were paid for, but they got to be creative and experiment on things they had been thinking about. In fact, Post-its came out of that exercise. So, and then I love the part where employees, spouses, partners, and families become the staunchest advocates. We've become friends with so many of our employees and their families because of that. We know that, hey, no matter what, if the families know that their loved one is in a great place to work and that they're cared for and they're happy, then they have a role to play in the retention. And saying, hey, I know whatever, maybe you had a bad day, but you remember what it was like at the other place? Or you know what I mean? Another thing we learned, weekly meetings with direct reports to discuss goals, coach, and converse. We've talked about this ad nauseum. We've talked about the 411. There's a mini moment from Margaret about the 411, or I should say Mo. Mini moment with Mo. This is a huge hack for us. If you're not meeting with your people once a week, you are creating an opportunity for them to create an inner dialogue that is untrue. This happens to me all the time, and it's one of the most frustrating aspects of being alive for me. I hate it. I hate it when someone comes up with a dialogue for me that isn't mine. They assume what I would say, or they assume how I would respond, and then they make decisions based on that assumption. It's the worst. I hate it. So, by meeting with people on a weekly basis, they don't have to guess what you're thinking. They know what you're thinking. And they don't have to worry about, did they say something wrong or do something wrong because because their boss is acting all moody and weird. Is it them or is it something at home? You know what I mean?
All that chatter could be taken care of with just half an hour to an hour meeting. fancy that communication. It's one of those things I think we've talked about so many times, like you've said, where it's simple, but it's not easy.
Right. This is, I found this quote in an article in Fast Company, and I'm so glad I did because it's perfect. If the only feedback your employees get from you is in the form of a 6 or 12-month performance review, it's time to change your approach to feedback. Dropping bombs on employees once or twice a year only serves to build up pressure and make feedback sessions feel like indictments. And most importantly, it does little to alter behavior and improve performance and productivity, which should be your goal. Mm-hmm. That's from Dennis Wilson in an article for Fast Company. So yeah, my ex-wife used to work for Boeing. Boeing's a huge employer in the Pacific Northwest, and they would have 6 or 12-month performance reviews. And some of you might be yelling at me saying it's once a quarter.
Sure.
I will tell you it's different in every department. Yeah. While it was supposed to be once a quarter, it was often every 2 or 4 quarters. And my ex would get weird every time, and I get it. Over 6 months when you haven't gotten feedback, and then you're supposed to, it feels like an indictment. It feels like you're going to your trial. Yeah. And it's paralyzing, and it's gross. And so you can get rid of that feeling by just meeting with them once a week. In Good to Great, Jim Collins talks about if you fire a rocket ship to the moon, you don't just aim and shoot and hope it gets there. You make thousands of small adjustments along the way. And that's what he wants us to do with employees, make thousands of small adjustments along the way, instead of doing an annual review, what makes them crap their pants. Another hint, be slow to hire, quick to fire. I feel like we've gotten better at this one. We are very slow to hire, and we are quick to fire. We've just learned, and I feel this way about a lot of things in life. And I feel everyone deserves an opportunity. I believe in second chances. And then it's it. That's it. It's out. I'm out. So Jim Collins in Good to Great says, if you have the wrong people, it doesn't matter whether you discover the right direction. You still won't have a great company. Great vision without great people is irrelevant. I can have the best vision around and then put a bunch of yes men around me, and it goes nowhere.
Yeah. What? Can we talk about that for a second?
Yes.
I think probably our listeners are very aware, if they've been listening to our episodes up till now, or if they're just listening to this one for the first time, this will be interesting for them.
Congratulations on being very aware, audience.
So I'm definitely not a yes man. I'm a people pleaser, and I love people to be happy. And though, like, obviously I challenge you. How have you handled that? Like, how do you handle that? Because I believe that. I believe that we need to be surrounded by people that are going to challenge us and question us, but that has to be done in like the right way, you know? And I see so many partnerships where it's not done appropriately or with respect or with, you know, and you had in the beginning and still now, you have a vision, you have ideas, and when I challenge it, like, how have you gotten to a place where you're okay with that, where you want that, honestly?
I think there's a difference between, and I've talked about this. I think it's easy to be an entrepreneur, an early entrepreneur, your first time around, and to bet on yourself and to keep betting on yourself to success. I believe in that big time. And then I think the area you can slip into there is that you're King Midas. Everything you touch turns to gold. Just trust your gut. Move forward. There's some brilliance in that. And it's not totally sustainable. And it exists only then because of the vision of that one person. So if I don't want to be on 24/7. Yeah. And if I hire talented people that are better than me in different aspects, then I need to learn to trust them in their role, period. Yeah. And if they have something to say about their role and how that role then affects the business overall, I need to be willing to listen to them. Mm-hmm. So I think you have two options. You either work yourself to the bone and you work harder and you work longer and you don't have time for family and you don't have time to do the stuff you want, but you're very busy and you feel very good because you're in demand. People want you, and you'll stay up until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning to get it done because these people are depending on you. And that level of dependence feeds something in your soul. Yeah. There's that. Or the other option is you care about people other than yourself because you have a wife or a spouse or a partner and you have kids. And you realize that while I do this thing that I love that feeds me and puts a roof over my head, it doesn't replace other aspects of my life. And if I'm going to have a life, I need to learn to trust other people to handle my business. Okay. And so I reached a point, I mean, I talk about the separation and divorce so much because that's when I changed in my head from I'm the vision, I'm going to drive this, I'm making all the decisions to I need to make decisions for my kids now. And I need to make decisions as a dad now. And I need to make decisions in order for Jesse right now so that I can attract a mate and you know what I mean? Yeah. And then I mean I leaned heavy on you through that. So to get back to your question, the root of it is what? The root of it is how do I trust other people's to have a vision for the company? Or when you challenge me, how do I not get emotional? How
did you acclimate to that challenge of
not easily. I mean, when people push back, I used to be a brat about it, and I still can be.
I don't know if I'd say brat.
I can roll my eyes and sigh.
Well, sure, maybe the response, like the physical response, but I'm thinking about it for myself too. Like when I get challenged, and you have to be open to being challenged, but I want to be challenged by people I respect, I guess. So maybe I had earned a level of respect from you.
Well, haven't you learned? This is an interesting discussion for us to have. Haven't you learned, though, that I don't push back? There's certain things I don't push back that hard on with you. Yeah. Because I know you need time. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back a few episodes to the awkward conversation between you and I. What episode is that? Do you know?
Oh, God, no.
Okay. I thought it was like...
It was before Jessica.
39. No, it's before that.
In the 30s, yeah.
Well, we had a conversation, and in that podcast, you talked about energy, and I talked about sales. Yeah. And I said, hey, if you want to become an energy broker, do that. Like, there's going to be things we don't agree on. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, always.
And I don't do this very often, and I'm very clear about this overall. And I say this to my employees and I say it to my kids, and both is applicable. Everybody gets a voice. Not everyone gets a vote. So I want to hear you. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know why. My experience may tell me something differently, right? And so I'll take what you say and I'll hear it. I'll ingest it. But I may make a different decision. And sometimes I make the right decision. Sometimes I don't. You have to trust me either way. And then next time, hopefully, both of us have learned through that process. You've learned to trust me more, and I've learned to listen to you more, and so on. I
was thinking of something else too. I can't think of it.
It's not easy. I mean, believe me, I'm a very impatient person.
Oh, I remembered it. Okay. Based on what you just said. I think I've asked you this before. Do you think this would have happened if you hadn't gotten divorced?
What would have happened?
Where we're at now. Do you think you would have gone through that same process, but maybe at a different time?
Something needed to happen to me, period. It
was kind of inevitable.
I was holding my breath and white knuckling it for a long time. Yeah. And I was doing those things because I was afraid to be myself, and I was more afraid of that than anything in life. Yeah. And I thought if I was myself, that no one would love me and everyone would leave me. Yeah. And some of that's true. Some of it
unfortunately
happens.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it needed to happen. No matter what, it needed to happen. Because I couldn't continue to live that way.
No.
And it feels weird to talk about it because I don't want to exclude our audience from everything that happened. But audience, just realize that if you lived a certain way your entire life that was not congruent with who you were, and you just did it to make other people happy, you can't sustain that.
When you wake up from that,
And as you wake up from it, it gets ugly.
Yeah.
You create a mess.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out. So.
Okay, well, thanks for going down that rabbit hole. I had to ask.
Yeah, so I think it would have. It would. Hey, listen,
struggle.
It would have happened one way or the other.
Yeah, I just see. I think
because there's you grow to the extent your business grows to the extent that you do.
Yeah.
Right. So if I tumble and fall, the business tumbles and falls.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
Well, and I think the beauty of our partnership, one of the things I really love that I love talking about is the fact that I do challenge you and you challenge me. And that's what I encourage so many admin and operations folks to do. And they don't get the guts up to do it because of whatever fear they have. And so that's where I want to dig in, because I think there are more leaders that need to learn how to be challenged and understand it's not like we're not trying to take something from your business. We're actually trying to add to it. Like, it comes from a good place. And if it's not coming from a good place, I will shut myself up. Like, if I know there's something going on in me that's either, rooted in jealousy or some negative feeling, I've gotten a lot better at saying, hey, Margaret, that's, no, it's not coming from a good place. But when I do challenge you, it is really honestly because I want to better the business. And so I think this kind of back and forth is the root of what so many people are missing. So that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I think you've changed a lot in that and how you react and how you respond to challenge.
I think there's another point to be made there, and that is I've learned to be comfortable in the uncomfortable times.
Yeah.
So there used to be a time when you would challenge me, and it would make it so
you,
physically uncomfortable between the two of us.
Yeah.
That one of us would relent or recant or do something.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I used to be pressing for a resolution that day, so before I could move on to other stuff, and I would demand it.
Yeah.
I learned that I was asking for something people can't always give me, which is resolution, same day. I now realize some people need time to process, and so I realized that I have to become more comfortable with not having resolution all the time. And I don't have to be comfortable with it forever, but I have to lengthen the time that I endure the awkwardness.
That's a good point.
I've gotten really good at enduring.
Yeah. Well, it's not something you normally want to sit in. Who does? Yeah.
I learned this one from former KW CEO Mark Willis. Talent that is not a cultural match can kill an organization. Gary Vee talks about this as well.
Yeah.
One bad apple spoils the bunch. If you can have someone this is just the easiest way to say it. You can have someone who's number one in your sales team, number one in your organization. Everyone knows they're a problem. HR knows they're a problem if you had HR.
Yeah.
If you didn't have HR, everyone else knows that you're lucky you don't have HR, because they're a problem, man. And they take and they take and they take, and they're caustic and they're unapologetic because they're the best.
Yeah.
They think they're the best.
Yeah.
And that person, if they're highly influential, if they get an idea that is not congruent with your vision, they'll move the business that direction, and they're going to take people with them. So if you don't cut that cancer out right away, you might lose a limb or two or three.
Yeah, I think you've seen my response to this with some of the hires that we've had over the last couple of years, where I've literally pulled them into a room with you and I've just said, hey, I'm just double checking because I'm neurotic about this right now. What are your intentions with what you just did? And can you just explain to me? I want to make sure we're on the same page, because I'm not, have no patience for that anymore. And I'm a very patient person, but I will no longer allow an inkling of that in our area. Not with these people that we have now. Yeah. Not worth it.
A few more quick thoughts. The interest of one team member doesn't exceed the interest of the team as a whole. This is something I thought of through the years. I realized that when teammates come to me and ask for a special deal or a one-time
Which happens a lot with sales agents, yeah.
You know, and usually it's related to money or to a draw or to some commission split. Mm-hmm. If it hurts the team and they are still asking for it, then that's incongruent with my philosophy. And it's a warning flag to me. If someone wants something that benefits them but not the team overall, warning flag. And I don't care if they're the number one salesperson on my team. I've just issued them a yellow card, and if I see that behavior repeated, then they're off the team. Which is another good point. I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. In our business, how this works is we set very clear expectations. People sign a document stating what their expectations are and agreeing to my expectations. If they defy those standards, the first time they get a warning, maybe even a performance improvement plan. The second time, they're off the team. And that's it.
Hey, I have to tell you, sorry, random, kind of in line with the PIP, because the PIP is supposed to actually be a positive, overall positive experience. And I've talked to a lot of admin about this recently. Like when we are giving someone a PIP, it's because, hey, we actually still believe in you. If we didn't, you'd be gone already. So this is to help you get back on track. And for anybody we have ever given a PIP to, they've all deselected. They've all taken themselves off the team because that's how they chose to respond to it, even though we framed it in a positive manner. And I'm saying that because you reminded me as you were talking about that someone actually recently reached out to me and said that they so admired how we handled, like how Sarah left the team, that they are following our lead and doing the same thing with someone that's leaving their team. And that just gave me so much joy because it just shows me that what we're talking about here, people are listening to and watching.
Well, and I'll say this. Your employee or a staff member or whatever, sales agent leaving the team, how you treat them at the end is just like a seller or a buyer at the end of a transaction. Oh, yeah. That's what they remember more than anything. Yeah. So if somebody's on their way out and you treat them like crap, they're going to have crappy things to say about you. Yeah. If you have someone leaving the team and you treat them well, they're going to have good things to say about you, period. So keep it in mind. I know it's frustrating. Sometimes you're personally hurt and offended by these people. Yeah. I have been hurt so many times and offended so many times by people leaving who didn't see the value I gave them or didn't appreciate it or showed a lack of gratitude. I still have people to this day that bad talk me that don't understand or know how much benefit I gave them. Yeah. And I just have to be okay with it.
Just have to accept it. Yeah.
And then this is my biggest, two remaining thoughts, but and this is a Jesseism. In the absence of an established culture, another culture forms. Yeah. So be very vigilant in how you establish your culture. If you say you don't have one, guess what? It's being formed for you as you speak, as you sit there, in the back rooms, in the water coolers, in the private conversations that people have when you're gone, and they're forming the culture.
And culture is such a people talk culture all the time, but they don't ever give specifics, or people are like, what is this thing called culture? What does it look like? And literally for me, when I think about us and what we've done over the years, it comes down to the office space that we're in, how things are arranged, like high fives between team members, going to lunch together. It's literally your daily actions that all add up to create a culture of inclusivity, personal development, integrity, like those things that we talk about.
Yeah, I think it's very much important that when you're setting the tone in times of community with your team, and you have to be very not aware of if someone says something that is outside of your culture. You have to have a way of handling that and making sure everybody knows about it without like indicting that person. Yeah. And so culture is what people feel when you're not around. Yeah. Culture exists without you.
Yeah, literally how you make people feel.
you and I can be hard on ourselves because of production or because of sales or how we have high standards and high expectations. And it's always funny to me when someone comes on. Like, just recently I was complaining about hiring when we have fewer sales. Mm-hmm. Like, when seasonally we have fewer sales than other times of the year, I like hiring people when we're busy because it's impressive. It looks good and they have things to do. And Jiggles, and we're not as busy on the listing side right now. The buy side's really busy. And I was complaining to Jiggles about it. And she said, she kind of put it back on me and said, no, it's not like that. Like, you don't understand what it's like to work with other teams. It's not like this. It's still better. No matter what, it's still better.
And she's of the same mindset of me that, sure, we don't have as many sales on the list side right now, but there's always something to do. So, like, there's plenty for us to do to help, refirm the foundation. There's so much to do. And I love that about her too. But, and that's exactly what she said. I was going to say something else about the culture. I don't think, you kind of mentioned it. I don't think sometimes I remember that you and I are really, everybody's on, but I am literally on. The moment I exit my car and enter the building, I don't allow myself to slack because of that, because I know that literally people are watching, not just on the team, but off the team, and they're listening to what we say, how we act, what we do, all of those things. And so I don't allow myself to really kind of come down from that until I go home. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a different person at home. I'm very much the same person. However, I am like on my A game when I come into this because I want such a strong foundation for the leaders that are building the different departments that I know it's really important to maintain. And I think and I know it's exhausting, which is why you and I think really sometimes have to look at each other and say, okay, it's time to take a break. Like, you go on vacation, I go on vacation. We just have to make it happen because I forget how much I put myself on some sort of, I don't even know what the right word is, but I'm on. Like, I'm aware all day long, and it's exhausting some days more than others. Building a culture is hard, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think it's hard. I think like anything, the first part's hard. Getting
it
established,
easier.
laying the foundation. And then as you, if it's just coloring within the lines after that, it's work, but it's not as hard.
True. And it's gotten easier as we've found the right people.
And that's
I don't have to maintain as much. Yeah.
If we hire the right people, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Jaggles and Daniel.
If we hire the wrong
Jessica,
people, it gets really hard.
Right now, it feels so good because like Daniel just came into my office before we started the podcast this morning, and he comes in so humble, and he's like, "Can you help me with this one thing?" I'm like, hell yes, sit down. Thank you for putting yourself in front of my face. Otherwise, I would have gotten, pulled out to do the podcast and done all these other things, and I wouldn't have been able to sit down with him and show him something. And he's such a humble guy. And he's like, and we're talking about what's going on in the business for the 15 minutes that he has with me. And I love the people that we have. You're right. Like, it gets easier.
And then this is all going to be wrapped up with this one sentiment that I have. So let's go back to that cornfield in, I think it's in Nebraska. I'm not sure.
Nebraska?
It's a young picture. Oh, shit.
I have no idea where he's going with this right now, just so you know, listeners.
Hold on. I got to look something up.
Are you looking something up?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Nebraska.
Okay,
I don't know that he's ever even been
Picture
there.
a young Kevin Costner. What? A small coat of sweat on his face and neck as he looks out from his farmhouse over his field of corn.
Oh, God.
And he hears a voice.
I love that movie.
If you build it, they will come. And I think as an entrepreneur, I think there's an important message. This is a business model, and it's not going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not the type of business model I recommend for anyone that values their life and their wealth. But if you're gutsy enough and you're ballsy enough, you can be like Noah hearing from God, and you could be the crazy man building a boat in the middle of a desert. Or you could be Kevin Costner in a cornfield in the middle of Nebraska, builds a softball field. My recommendation to you: don't hire for what you need, hire for where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go a certain direction, hire somebody to take you in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait until you need someone to go looking for them.
Yes.
If you've discovered you need them, it's too late.
It's too late already, yeah.
Your client experience is suffering. There's no way that you don't have a patient 0 that you're experimenting on in your database. Mm-hmm. Instead, think with the end in mind. Think about where you want to go next, and then hire in that direction. Mm-hmm. If you want to be done showing buyers, hire in that direction.
Yep.
You want to be done working on listings after the first initial contact or after the contract is, or the listing contract signed, then hire someone to move in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say to someone who's unsure
of what?
Of what to do next? Which, like, maybe they don't need someone yet necessarily, so they're kind of like, oh, but I don't need an assistant. Should I do that? I mean, it goes back to the first step is hiring an assistant. The other thing I guess it makes me say is just take action.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not ready, then you should be interviewing people. Mm-hmm. Get ready to get ready.
Yeah.
You know, like if you think you need to make a hire, are you familiar with the hiring process? Mm-hmm. If you're not familiar with the hiring process, get familiar with it. Mm-hmm. Start doing assessments on yourself and your family members. Mm-hmm. Get good at validating those assessments. Get good at reading those reports. Get good at figuring out where in the report the important things are to you.
Yeah.
And highlighting those and use that to create a job description for the person that you need.
Yeah.
There's never not anything to do.
Yeah.
Like
there's always something to do.
And here's the thing. If you're working too much, guess what? You're going to work harder and longer to do all this other stuff. So don't wait until you're at 100% capacity. I'm going to tell you, when you think you're at 75%, start looking.
Yeah.
Start doing this other stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to need that other 25% of the day, of the week, of the month to do all this stuff to get ready for that person, to build the job description, to get comfortable with assessments, to take the classes that you need to be good at this. You don't want to mess this up. Here's why. And I'm serious about this. Well, I take it very seriously anytime I ask someone to leave a paying vocation, period. If they have someone who's willing to pay them a paycheck, take it seriously. They're putting their life and trust in your hands. And so I like to make sure when I hire someone, they know my plan is for them to stay with me through the end of time.
Through the end of time.
And I have to prepare for that.
Told us.
I have to prepare for that.
Yeah.
So I take this seriously. You should take it seriously. Be prepared. The more prepared you are, the more people are going to want to join your organization, and you'll attract better people. So just here's what I would say. Don't get all caught up in how great you are. Don't get caught up in how awesome you are in sales and good for you, you're number one or whatever for the month or the week or whatever.
There's always someone ahead.
There's someone better than you. Go find them. There's someone better than you at something. You know how many people are like, I wish I would have met Margaret before Jesse did.
Yeah, I've told people have said that to
right?
me. I wish I had run into you before Jesse.
Yeah. Well, good
and
luck.
I said, well,
you didn't.
It was meant to be.
Well, and they didn't.
And they didn't.
So
there. It happened just as it should.
There we are.
There we are.
On step 4 or step 3.
Step 3. Thank you. Like, we got 2 more steps left to go.
My eyes went to the notes down below. What could it be? Step 4 lingers in the shadows, waiting to be discovered.
Field of Dreams reference was really excellent.
Field of Dreams. Yeah. So
I just imagine Kevin Costner with the bead of sweat on his face.
I say,
it's cute.
I say it to people. It's the Field of Dreams business model. If you build it, they will come. Which it's a kind of a great business model for some people because some things don't exist.
Oh yeah.
Steve Jobs was a big believer in if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
No one was asking for the iPhone. No one knew to ask for the iPhone.
No.
He's like, let me tell you what you need.
Yeah.
Right? And so
I like that. Let me tell you what you need.
There is an element. There's a big study that was done about the buying public and how they're broken up, and it's like early innovators are like 3%, and early adopters are like 3 to 4%.
Yeah.
And then it's like the masses.
And the masses.
So it has to go through the innovators, then it has to go through early adopters, and then it gets to the masses. And so you can't wait for demand to happen.
No.
If there's a demand, it's too late.
You got to create it. Yeah.
It's like cannabis in Washington State.
Yeah.
It's a little late to get in on that game because the demand's already there.
Yeah.
So being able to create demand is a pretty amazing.
I'm going to marinate on that for the rest of the day now.
It's pretty amazing ability.
Let me tell you what you need.
So like in real estate, that can manifest in many different ways.
Yeah.
But mostly, and this works, is making sure people understand how many steps are involved in the process, what the liability is, and not scaring them into any. But I had a client recently in the listing appointment ask about liability, and we talked through it, and we talked about how having an agent lessens your liability.
Interesting.
So
smart client.
Yeah. Well, Margaret's completely befuddled.
I'm just going to marinate and noodle on that. I'm going to noodle on it this weekend. What are you doing this weekend?
I'm going to, it's a museum day in
What's that?
Washington State on Saturday.
For all museums?
So I think up to 4 people get in free.
Oh, cool.
Of a family.
Okay.
So we're going to Museum of Flight.
Awesome.
Apologize. And watching Seahawks try to make it to 3-0.
Nice.
Sunday. Yourself?
Myself. Tonight I'm going to India RE. And then I have I feel we're going to joke about this. I have a couples massage on Saturday with Jankles. I'm actually working with her. One of the things I'm talking to her about is self-care because she needs some assistance with that, which I've always needed to, and you've really helped me a lot, actually. So I've been encouraging her to do things, and she recently said I should probably get a massage, and I was like, so should I. Let's go together. So, because then we just like to laugh about it. It's a good time. So
You're going to start rumors. You guys go to Hawaii together, get couples massages
you know what?
together.
I welcome the rumors because Lord knows I have plenty of other ones going around. So they're all positive, though. Don't worry.
I saw something that was kind of ridiculous today.
What was it?
Do you know who Mark Ronson is?
I know that last name.
He's a musician. He wrote Uptown Funk.
Okay, yeah.
And then so he's kind of a musician who writes songs, and he collaborates with a lot of different people.
Okay.
So he collaborated with Pharrell on with Bruno Mars on Uptown Funk.
Okay.
And then he worked with Miley Cyrus.
Cool.
Recently, and he has his own album. Anyway, he's a musician. He's awesome. And there's this headline today that Mark Ronson comes out as sapiosexual. And this made me laugh out loud a little bit. But then you read the article, and it made me laugh out loud even harder.
Really?
Well, it's so ridiculous because for those that don't know, sapiosexual means that you're attracted to intelligence, first and foremost.
Okay, I so am, though.
Okay, well, and I'm not a gender studies professor or
I'm not
whatever.
About this. Yeah.
So let me just say, in my white cisgendered male understanding of what sapiosexual means, the way that they wrote about it was that is paramount. Intelligence is paramount. Gender is secondary.
Okay.
Okay, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like, I know people that are sapiosexuals, that they are attracted to intelligence first, and then maybe looks second or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And in the article, they were saying that this sapiosexuality trumps gender. So, like, if you're sapiosexual, if they're smart, you don't care if they're male or female.
Oh, okay.
And I'm saying I don't know about that because I know lots of sapiosexuals that are also heterosexual or also homosexual. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but it was just so funny and so as you read the article, it's about Mark Ronson being on Good Morning America or something, saying I'm sapiosexual. Like, he comes out as, And I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't deserve a headline. This doesn't deserve an article. What are you saying? If he likes red cars, are you going to publish that? Like, he likes intelligent people? Okay. And then as you read the whole article, you realize that what happened was they had a scientist on or an author on right beforehand. And so while Mark Ronson's in the green room, he's listening to her talk about how she's talking about sapiosexuality and how she has been attracted to men and women and transgendered people and all these other, it doesn't matter as long as they're intelligent first and foremost. And so then he comes on and does his thing, goes, I must be a sapiosexual then. And then that's the headline that they put on CNN. Wow. Mark Ronson comes out as sapiosexual. And I'm like, what are we doing? This era is so weird.
That's interesting.
That Mark's like, I like intelligent people. And we're like, good for you. Way to come out. And I'm like, what?
That is funny. Interesting. You've given me a lot to think about over the weekend.
You're so funny when you do this introspective pause. I wish I could animate your body language right now.
So we should be on YouTube, right? We got to be on YouTube.
Eyes tilted to the sky, searching for meaning.
When you're thinking, do you look off to the side? Like, do you look? Have you ever thought about
what side
that?
do I look to? That'll tell you.
Or up?
Do you know that what side people look to tells you something?
That's supposed to tell you something.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
One side's creative and one side is where memories are stored.
Yeah.
So if they're looking to the memories side, then it's real. And if they're looking to the creative side, they're making it up.
Oh, God,
that's what the rule is. That's the rule is.
I
look to the sky. I look all the time.
I look all the time,
but
too.
I'm very contemplative in my words.
Yeah.
I'm so careful with my words.
Yeah.
It's so paralyzing for me to listen to this podcast sometimes because I'm not fast. I want to speak about 10 times faster than I'm speaking.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm slowed down by my filter.
Interesting.
My filter that says, is this the right word? Is this the right nuance? Are you getting the meaning across?
Interesting.
And so when you hear me like pause, it's because I haven't found the right word.
Have you learned anything from that, from listening back to that?
I need to read more books.
Really?
Well, I need to add more words to use if I can't find the right word.
Interesting. You're well read, though. I think
I used to be. I mean, and I like reading books.
Non-business books too.
The reason I mandate that we read 2 or 3 chapters of a business book every week or a book is so that I will do it. I don't do it for everybody else. I do it for me.
Yeah.
I do it because I won't do it.
Yeah.
As it is, I don't do it until Monday night or Tuesday.
Yeah,
we meet Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Yeah,
and I'm not. There's no way I have read there's no way I've read any of the assignment 24 hours prior to it being due.
Yeah.
In that last 24 hours is when I do all of it. So if I don't have that, I don't read books.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, it's been interesting listening back to some of these episodes and learning things about myself and how I speak or how you speak, how we interact. Just you hear different things after you. I mean, I feel like we're learning stuff too. We're going to look back at these episodes and go, oh my God.
Mopra, tell me more. No, you said I've said this before and I'll say it again. Like your ability to come in here by yourself and just speak eloquently, concisely, thoughtfully, you're very adept at it.
Oh, thank you.
And I come in here and it's like I just shot a BB in an empty gas tank, man. It just rattles around. I can hit all sorts of topics.
God, you're too funny.
Not deliver any salient point.
Good word, salient.
Who knows if I'm using it right. Mostly I'm just counting on most people not knowing whether or not what I'm saying is accurate or not.
If anybody can give us a shout out and let us know if you know what salient means, that'd be great.
All right. See you next week for step 4.
What's step 4? Can we tell them?
I know you can't out it. You already outed step 3 before we got to step 3 today.
I'm looking forward to it. But what do I not look forward to? I found out I'm the most optimistic person on the team, which doesn't surprise me, according to the assessment.
And guess who's the most skeptical on the team?
You and Jessica?
Me. Then Jessica. I've been here longer, so mine counts more.
True that. All right. Well, happy weekend.
Happy weekend. See you later, finally clickers.